Good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock and time for the Daily Word from St. John Methodist Church. I'm Pastor Ronald, Genaro, and today's our Bible study edition, so you'll be with us an hour or nearly an hour. And so we have several announcements, and then we will open with a word of prayer, and then we will dive right into the book of Exodus. And I'm checking to make sure we're online with both services, and we are. All right. So, our first announcement is about our summer services. This Sunday is the last of our single services at 9:30 a.m. I wore a Hawaiian shirt today just in honor of it being the last. Actually, it's not going to be my last Sunday wearing Hawaiian shirts. It's still too hot in September, so we'll wear them through to October. But summer services, 9:30, and then so this week, one service at 9:30. Then we go to two services on the 7th. And our next announcement is about Faith and Fitness every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. in the Fellowship Hall. We have exercise that takes place. And you know what? We failed to put these announcements up, this next one, and that is on Thursdays on the Schumacher property, we hand out popsicles. And the kids, it starts to build. More kids will come and get it. Less kids were walking because it was so hot. Judy, you were last week. Was it about 5 or 6 kids again?
We had more pullovers.
Oh, people pulled over to get some, yes. That happens too. We also want to let you know about the wake-up call by Seedbed. And you can scan this QR code off your computer screen, and you can sign up for the wake-up call, which is delivered usually every morning, somewhere between 4 and 5 in the morning, although this morning it was 7:03 at my box. And but I didn't have to wait on it. I slept in till 7:15. So, but the daily wake-up call, or the wake-up call, it comes each day. And we're really encouraging everyone in the church to sign up for September 1st. We start a new cycle, and that is going to be reading the Gospels. So one chapter a day from September 1st. It's 89 days. It culminates on November 28th, my birthday. And that'd be the best birthday present to get, is that all of the congregation is working through and reading one chapter a day. And J.D. Walt, who is the editor-in-chief, or as he calls himself, the chief sower, he will be commenting and on the text, on the chapter each day. Now, what's unique about this Bible study is our devotional is you can read it, which is what I generally do, or you can listen to him as he does the presentation. And I'm actually going to do the listening all the way through this time. And I'm joining Judy. She listens to it every day, and he sings, and you sing with him. He invites everyone to sing with him too. We also want to remind you that today's our return to Bible study, and so you're here, I'm here. We only have a few folks here, but we have all the best folks who come, and the best are online with us as well. We want to also remind you that this Sunday after service, we have Fellowship Hall potluck. It's the Labor Day potluck, and we're going to have pulled pork as our main dish, and then we ask that folks bring salads, desserts, side dishes, any of those kinds of things, and we'll share in that. And if you've not signed up, please call the office so we can add your name on, or bring your dish and just come. Ladies First Friday Fellowship is next Friday morning at 10 a.m. in the Fellowship Hall, open to all ladies and their friends. I know there's going to be a program, and it's going to be about disaster preparedness and things like that, hurricane preparedness, and representatives from the county are coming. Fellowship dinners, September 5th at 5:30 p.m. That's the evening, the Fellowship Hall, where there's a $5 per person. We're going to have a sign-up this Sunday in the narthex, and this is going to be pizza and a movie. And I think the movie is some presentation from Lights and Sound out of Missouri. Where's the place in Missouri? They're in Pennsylvania. They're also in Missouri, and I think that Branson. Also, the fellowship breakfast returns, and that's going to be Wednesday, September 10th. So mark this on your calendar, 8 a.m. in the fellowship hall. All are welcome to attend. Grief Share starts Thursday, September 11th in the education building. Actually, it's not, we probably won't be in the education building quite yet. The first one will have to be in the fellowship hall, and then they'll be back. They're starting the work and gathering materials. That's going to be put together in about 2 weeks. St. John Golf League every Friday in August. So this Friday is the last Friday in August. But then we start, because it's also going to carry over into September, and every Friday in September they will be meeting as well. And we did not quite finish this past week. We got to the 16th hole, and we looked up and watched the sky and said, discretion is the better part of valor. Let's go in. Called the group behind. We're going in. They went in, and by the time we got to the up to our cars, the skies let loose. But we were able to eat lunch. Many of us ate lunch. Not all of us, but many of us. Office hours are from Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., and we're closed at lunch from 12 to 12:30. Parkway Food Ministry, we are always looking for non-perishable food, peanut butter, canned goods, and cereal that will go to Parkway Food Ministries. The Chancel Choir rehearsals begin Wednesday, September 3rd at 6 p.m. Call Catherine for more information if you like. Those are all of our announcements. We are studying Exodus, the Book of Freedom, and I'd like to open us in prayer. And it's been a long summer. Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you and praise you for your goodness, your mercy, and your presence with us. Please be with those who normally are here but are unable to be here today, and be with those who are watching online and those who will watch later today. We ask, O God, that you would speak to us through the story of the Exodus and of Moses as he leads your people. Speak to us, but also through us, we ask. For we ask these things in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. We are actually at the end of chapter 14. We stopped. There was a little section that we could not pick up, and that is about what happened. So I'm going to highlight and go back very quickly. Very, very quickly. You're going to get a review. And the review is Moses is born. Moses is hidden in the bulrushes. Moses is adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh's name means the guy who lives in the big house. That's what it literally translates translates into. So Pharaoh will adopt Moses as a grandchild. His daughter will raise him. First 40 years of his life, he is raised as an Egyptian and as a prince of Egypt. Now, in the movie presentations, because it is silent in Scripture, but in the movies, and in Hollywood and the cartoons, Moses, Prince of Egypt, and the Ten Commandments, a common theme is that Moses discovers one day that he is an Israelite. Most likely, he knew very early on, and the reason why he would know that is because he was circumcised, because they practiced circumcision on the 8th day. He was more than 8 days old. And when he was adopted, and I know this because the Egyptians did not practice circumcision. The only group in the ancient days, in this ancient time, that practiced circumcision were the Jews. They were it. That's it. So that was an identifier to a male if he were circumcised. My parents were Jewish. I'm an Israelite. So he knows this, most likely, discovers this, understands that. So he is circumcised. He lives as an Egyptian, though. He understands that the Israelites are his people, and he stops an Egyptian from abusing an Israelite, and he stops him by killing him. So he's a murderer. Or, at the very least, he has committed manslaughter. In intervening, he kills the Egyptian. He hides the body. A few days later, Two Israelites are fighting. Moses steps in between and says, hey, stop it. And they say, are you going to kill us too and hide our bodies? Because the secret is out. Because probably the person who was being abused by the Egyptian said, the prince killed my abuser. And then hid the body, and that went like wildfire because things happen, right? You can't keep secrets. Most of us know that. So he runs. So for 40 years, he's on the run and wandering in the not wandering in the wilderness, but for 40 years, he has gone to Midian, and he meets Jethro, and he winds up marrying Jethro's daughter. And they have 2 sons. Then one day, after 40 years, so he's an 80-year-old man, he sees a bush on fire but not being consumed. He goes apart to take a look at it, see what it is. He encounters God. And then he argues with that burning bush that he is not worthy to be the one to go back and to be the Redeemer, the one to lead the people out of bondage. The voice from the bush says, I've heard the cries of my people, and you will go and deliver them. And I am sending you. And Moses gives all this kind of different reasons why he shouldn't go. There are 5 of them. The last one is the best one. I'd really rather not go. That's what we choose. Those are the kinds of things. Or he blames God. I have a speech impediment, which you gave me. You know I have it. You've never healed me of it. Now, by the end, he is the one speaking to Pharaoh. But God accommodates and says, your brother, Aaron, who is already now coming to meet you, he will speak for you. He has an older brother named Aaron. He has an older sister named Miriam. And they are still alive. And so he will go. And he will ask for the people to be freed. Pharaoh will say no. And there is this waging of wills. It is Pharaoh's heart saying no, and it is God sometimes making Pharaoh's heart say no. He sometimes says, well, yes, I'll let you go. No, I won't. He takes it back. Right? Because Moses didn't say no take backsies. Right? So, then they are allowed to leave, right? There are 10 plagues. The first ones are rather innocuous. They progressively become worse. The 10th plague is the plague of the firstborn. Anybody want to tell me what the plague of the firstborn is? Firstborn, males and females. It does indicate that. And of the animals. And the animals and the people. And so Moses would have been protected, most likely Aaron is the oldest, he would have died as the firstborn. Or if and that's different than what we normally would see, because normally in Judaism, a woman was considered barren if she had no sons. I apologize, ladies. I'm sorry. I have 3 daughters. My first 3 children were daughters, and nobody ever said we were barren. But my mother, I could hear the disappointment when I called her and said, another girl, oh, she just wanted a son. My brother had a son first. He picked the name that I was going to use, so I'd never picked, and so my nephew is Thomas. My grandfather was Herman Thomas Hinman, and so we both said, yeah, we're not naming him Herman, we'll name him Thomas. No offense to anybody named Herman, but I grew up in the 60s. The only Herman I knew aside from my grandfather was the Munsters. The Munsters. Fred Gwynn. And Herman's Hermits would have been okay, yeah. I didn't think about that one. I had led a sheltered life. So, after the 10th plague, they're allowed to leave. And so they gather to leave, and some prophecies were fulfilled, and the Egyptians give them whatever you want to take. But still, that thing was they were supposed to be going off into the wilderness to come back. But they Pharaoh changes his mind and he pursues them. And so their back is against the Red Sea, and there's no way to the right, there's no way to the left. The Red Sea is ahead of them. Pharaoh's army is approaching. Then God tells Moses this is chapter 14, verse 21. God tells Moses to stretch out his hand, and then Moses does it. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea. The Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and turned the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. The Israelites went into the sea on dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went into the sea after them, all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and chariot drivers. At the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and cloud looked down upon the Egyptian army and threw the Egyptian army into panic. He clogged their chariot wheels so that they turned with difficulty. The Egyptians said, "Let us flee from the Israelites, for the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." Then verse 26. The Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, so that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots and chariot drivers." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at dawn the sea returned to its normal depth, as the Egyptians fled before it. The Lord tossed the Egyptians into the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the chariot drivers. The entire army of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained. But the Israelites walked on dry ground through the sea, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great work that the Lord did against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord and believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. So those who were oppressing, those who were pursuing, were put to death. Now in the movie, The Ten Commandments, Pharaoh is standing there watching, which is what a general or a leader would do. He would stand back and watch them pursue. And it's a very poignant scene when the actor Yul Brynner, playing Pharaoh, returns and tells his wife, not only is their child dead, but his army is destroyed. Now, I've told you before, and I want to reiterate, that in Egyptian history, there is no account of this. And that has led some who wish to be critical of biblical history to say it didn't happen. But that's not taking into account that there are many things that are not in ancient history that we do have verifiable evidence of it, extra biblical accounts. And the reason for that is when you lost, you didn't record it. When you were defeated, you didn't list it. You would actually skip that part of your history and only put when you won. It's sort of like, like us. Still, we only remember our highlights, not our lowlights. Unless you're like some of us who you do remember the lowlights and you go, "Oh, I wish I'd have done this different." It's called neurosis. So it's not there. We don't have it in Egyptian history. Now we do have, and we don't have, but here's what's interesting. We also don't have the Israelites in Egyptian history ever spending time there. We just don't have them. All the wealth they got out of it, they don't have it. Now, the closest thing that some people think is a group called the Hyksos. And the Hyksos actually brought the wheel to Egypt. And so some scholars want to think, and it matches up to a similar time frame of when this could have been. But I'm going to, I talked about this the first day, and I'll go back to it again. What happened is the Hyksos brought in wheeled chariots. But they were a group that came in and dominated the Egyptians. The Israelites don't dominate. They're enslaved. We don't have an exact date for the Exodus. We have, there's kind of this range of about several hundred years where there's an early date and a late date, and it's argued about which is right, and no one knows for certain. There are fixed points in Israel's history that we have. Like we know when David reigned, because we know that. And then we have to work back from all of the other history. And then what confuses some is some of the accounts later on of the kings, we don't know exactly how long some people reigned because they co-reigned with sons. And that throws monkey wrenches into it. But we do know David is around 1000 BCE or BC, before Christ. And so one of the dates for the Exodus is 1700 years BC, and another date is 2200, and it's in that range from early and late date. I think that's right. Or I've messed that up, and that's the early date, and the late date's 1400. But there's a lot of history before David that had to be packed into just 400 years, or 700. 700 years sounds better. I think that's right. It's not 2200, sorry. Okay, so they pursue, they drown. There's no account in Egyptian history. Oddly, we do have boundary markers. They're called stelas, which are, it's so funny to me. The boundary markers that we have on church property, right? The parsonage. It's a pin. And you use a little thing and you find it. It's magnetic. But you find that, and there's a house, there's a lot next door to the church. One of our members owned it, but he sold it, and somebody cleared it a couple months ago. And they were out trying to clear, and they had to find the property line. And we don't have as much as we thought. And then there were other areas where we had more than what we thought. And we're a pie shape, not exactly a straight line, because the road has an angle to it and a bend. But it was just funny. You had pins. Right? You still have pins. Back then, they would put little obelisk type things. They called them stelas, and they would put the name of the person who owned it on the one side and on the person who owned on the other side. And so those were their boundary posts. I just think it's funny. We still use stakes and pins, and they used stone, which is a pin, basically, and marked it. And they had names. They have found stelas that have the name Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. They have found them with those names. Now, could they have been more common names than what we have in our Bible name, in our biblical account? Maybe. I don't know. My phone is shaking like crazy. Spam. I don't know when they started getting my cell number, but I've been getting spam calls like there's no tomorrow. Huh? Yeah, I'm getting 10 or 15 a day too, sometimes. All right, so chapter 15. Then Moses and the Israelites sang this song to the Lord. All right, so they're singing a song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength, my might, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, and I will praise him. My Father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Basically, they're saying God went out and fought for us and has been victorious. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he cast into the sea. His picked officers were sunk in the Red Sea. The floods covered them. They went down into the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, glorious in power. Your right hand, O Lord, shattered the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you overthrew your adversaries. You sent out your fury. It consumed them like stubble. At the blast of your nostrils, the waters piled up. The floods stood up in a heap. The deeps congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake. I will divide the spoil, my desire shall have its fill of them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. I'm going to stop there. So it's recounting. They're being killed, the pursuers. But it's God who is fighting for them. They don't fight. Remember, they're trapped. They have to trust in God. Moses, stretch out your hands. The water parts. The wind blows all night. It dries out the land. They walk through, no problem. The pillar actually gets before them, the cloud of, pillar by fire and the cloud by day, that blocks the Egyptians till they get far enough in. Then it allows them to pursue in. They get out, and then Moses, stretch out your hands again, and he prays, and the water fills back in. But even before that, it says he gummed up the tires, the wheels, so they couldn't move so easily. They were trapped. I wanted to stop for a second. The biblical language describes the Red Sea. It calls it the Red Sea. And there is a place where they said, this is where Moses crossed, right? Historically, that's what they say. But that's when you do the tourist thing. So those scholars who want to doubt the account of this story have come up with alternative theories. There is another place called the Reed Sea, that the water is basically knee deep the whole way. It's a very shallow. But it's, how did the Egyptian army drown? And so and I'm not trying to make fun. There are serious concerns that people have, but if you come solely from doubt and critical, it's called higher criticism. If you just are so critical of it, then you can't see sometimes how this all works out and plays out, because you're very concerned with proving that it didn't happen, rather than taking it as saying, well, this is what it says. Now, I don't mean that we just go blindly, oh, this is what it says, so it must all be true. We have to still check and verify that, just so you understand that. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, doing wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your steadfast love, you led the people whom you redeemed. You guided them by your strength to your holy abode. The peoples heard, they trembled, pangs seized the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom were dismayed. Trembling seized the leaders of Moab. All the inhabitants of Canaan melted away. Terror and dread fell upon them. By the might of your arm, they became still as a stone until your people, O Lord, passed by. Until the people whom you acquired passed by. You brought them in and planted them on the mountain of your own possession, the place, O God, or O Lord, that you made your abode, the sanctuary, O Lord, that your hands have established. The Lord will reign forever and ever. Then the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his chariot drivers went into the sea, or when the horses of Pharaoh with his chariots and his chariot drivers went into the sea, the Lord brought back the waters of the sea upon them. But the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. So that's what they said. And that's the song. We call that song a song of Moses, because Moses and the Israelites sang this song. I don't know that they mimeographed it and handed it out.
Pretty good, though. Singing that right then, making all the...
Yes. And Moses is writing the history, so we're not sure how that all plays out. Did they, was this a riff where they, like my son in the jazz group, that they just sort of came together and played, or was this something that they predetermined? Because it gives the history of going through. Now, there is another song, and we're going to do that one next, too, and I'm not singing, don't worry. Then the prophet Miriam, Aaron's sister, notice it doesn't say Moses' sister, but it is Moses and Aaron's sister, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and with dancing. And Miriam sang to them, "Sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. Horse and rider he has thrown into the sea." That's her song. Now, I will tell you that the rabbis say that there is another song that was sang, or that we don't have all of Miriam's song, but that in it she laments. Lament, right? Sad for the Egyptians who lose their life. But they have no evidence of this. It's just part of the rabbinic tradition. That while Moses and Miriam sang, there's also this understanding that they wept for the Egyptians who died, and that the angels wept, that God weeps for them. All right, now verse 22, we've got some more stuff going on here. Then Moses ordered Israel to set out from the Red Sea, and they went to the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. That is why it was called Marah, which means bitter. And the people complained against Moses. Ding, 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 ding. It's not the first time yet, right? They complained before. Who are you? You're bringing all these plagues and causing trouble. And Pharaoh took the straw away from our bricks. We still have the same tally to make. Who are you? Well, they're complaining because the leader gets the complaints. I once had an older pastor tell me, he says, have people invited you for dinner, for Sunday dinner? I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, all my congregation has me over for dinner every Sunday. I said, how do you go? No, they're talking about me. But what I said, they're arguing. Have the preacher for dinner where you roast him. Oh, I have people, you did this. I didn't do this. I had somebody one time, well, you said this. I never said that. Who told you I said that? Well, so-and-so. They said that you said it. I said, really? I haven't seen that person in 5 months. What? Stories happen. Leaders get that. Bob, out of the military. Gossip will undermine effective readiness for military readiness quicker than anything. Rumors, discussions, he went like this. He's like, absolutely. Some of you who live in planned communities know that all kinds of stuff, it's like wildfire when something gets out there. Well, they're mad. They're mad at Moses. You led us out into the wilderness to die of thirst. And get this, we're at this bitter waters. By the way, there's a question as to why it's named bitter, because maybe they were bitter. And the water reflected their attitude too. There's some concern and questions about that. So the people complained against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? This will not be the last time, by the way, folks. He cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it in the water, and the water became sweet. There the Lord made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he put them to the test. He said, if you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give heed to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will not bring upon you any of the diseases that I brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. What diseases are they talking about? Well, I think that it has to do with the plagues. Partly. Yeah, that they won't experience that. What's interesting is they don't have the commandments yet. They don't have the statutes. The only statute they have here is you will listen to God, and if you honor God, you won't go through what the Egyptians went through. It's a propositional relationship. if you do this, then I won't do this. It's contingent. Yes?
Didn't God give them some things when they came out of the ark? Like no idolatry, no murder?
Very basic stuff with Noah. But yeah, a little bit. Actually God said, I will make a covenant and I will never destroy the world again by flood. But it's minimal stuff. Well, murder enters the world when Cain kills Abel. And they're not supposed to do that. But the 10 Commandments, right, what we think of, they don't have yet. That's still coming. So it will build on the law.
Yeah, I think too, that's why part of the
But
reason why they wandered for so long was because he was teaching them various things.
well, they're going to have the commandments, and then the wandering, we're going to get to that because it's not yet. But the wandering has to do with disobedience and failing to trust God. Okay, they've had this big thing happen. Bondage. How many years were they in bondage? We're not exactly sure. It could be 300-400 years. Well, it says 400 years they sojourned there, but we don't know whether it was all, what we know is there arose a Pharaoh who did not remember Joseph. So was that in the first generation, in the second generation, and the third generation? We're not exactly sure. But this is a promise God makes to them. If you follow my rules, you will not experience what the Egyptians experienced. So what did the Egyptians experience? All the plagues. And they lost their lives in the Red Sea. This is a few days later. What an object lesson. You walk through. How did they walk through? On dry ground. That is a big deal. When they enter the promised land, all those years in the future, 40 years later, they will cross the river Jordan on dry ground. And it's like a bookkeeping or a bookmark. Bookend. Yeah, bookend. End. That's it. Not a mark. Whoops. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the water. Now, what is the significance of the 12 springs of water? It could be the 12 tribes. It could just be that there were 12 springs. We don't know. But most commentators at various times want to assign, 12 springs, 12 tribes, each had its own spring. That's good. 70 is 7 times 10. 7 is the number of perfection. 7 days God created the world. 7 also is the number for the Messiah. But that's reading a whole lot in that we may not have to do. And it gets tricky because there are some people who get really caught up in the numbers. And when I was in college, there was a book published, and it talked about all the numbers in the Bible, and it just all this. One of our professors had it and read it over a weekend and said, it's forced, and I don't know. Sometimes the number just means the number. Sometimes the number is important. We do know the number 40 is often used as a generation. That 40 stands for that. You have 40, which is kind of odd. And we also have, for Moses, he will live 3 groupings of 40. 40 years in privilege, 40 years as a shepherd, 40 years leading the people. I almost said, meaning he was put upon. In a very real respect, there will be moments, and we will see it, where Moses will intercede for the people and tell God, please don't wipe them out and start over, because what will the Egyptians say? What will people say about you? You couldn't lead them into the promised land. So Moses argues on behalf of the people. There'll be other times where Moses said, will you just strike these people dead? They are such a pain in the neck. And he will actually use the term, they are a stiff-necked people, meaning they're stubborn. And they only want to go their own direction and their own way. And he doesn't like that. So they go through this. Now you're going to have fun with me. We got 20 minutes. The whole congregation of the Israelites set out from Elim, and Israel came to the wilderness of Sin. It's a place. Doesn't mean it's filled with sin. It's just named that. And it's a wilderness, so it's desert area and desolate. Wilderness usually refers to that. People don't live there because it's so difficult to live there. Which is between Elim and Sinai. On the 15th day of the second month, after they had departed from the land of Egypt, the whole congregation of the Israelites complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Okay, they've already done it once at Marah, and now they're doing it again. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots and ate our fill of bread, for you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. First it was thirst, now it's food. Then the Lord said to Moses, I am going to rain bread from heaven for you, and each day the people shall go out and gather enough for that day. In that way I will test them, whether they will follow my instructions or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on the other days. So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, in the evening you shall know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your complaining against the Lord. For what are we that you complain against us? And Moses said, when the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening and your fill of bread in the morning, because the Lord has heard the complaining that you utter against him, what are we? Your complaining is not against us, but against the Lord. And that has started a long history of those of us in Christian ministry and service to say, you're not mad at me, you're mad at God. And that can be abused by some, but it really is the reality. Just as when we present the gospel to someone, if someone rejects it, they are not rejecting you, they are rejecting the message. Now, you may have to do better in the way you present it, and that could be the case. But here, this is very clearly Moses saying, you're mad at me and Aaron, and you're really mad at God, who has led us. We're just doing what God told us to do. Notice it said meet in the evening. That wasn't in the early part. So there's some questions about that. What is it that they're going to get? Well, we know what it is. This bread from heaven is manna. And what does manna translate to? You've been around me for years. It means, no, I say it must be like tofu, but that's not the answer. Manna translates to what is it? So that even the Israelites said, what is it? It's manna. Well, what is manna? It came down. We find it every morning in the dew. It's the bread of heaven. I teasingly say it must be tofu because they can boil it, they can bake it, they can fry it up in a pan and do all of that kind of stuff. And then they eat it. And, that's what tofu, it has no taste to me. It has no taste of its own. If you cook it with something, it has it. We used to go to a place that's closed in Lakeland called Mongolian Grill. There are only a handful of them still left in the country. There's one in Ohio, near where our sons live, and we didn't go eat there, but they had tofu. Janine's like, "Oh, try it." I went, "No, I've tried it before. I don't want it. It just tastes like whatever you cook with it." I said, "I'm just going to eat what I cook with, what I cook. I'll just eat that part. Yeah, I don't need to fill it with that." Then Moses said to Aaron, say to the whole congregation of the Israelites, draw near to the Lord, for he has heard your complaining. And as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the Israelites, they looked toward the wilderness, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the clouds. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, I have heard the complaining of the Israelites. Say to them, at twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall have your fill of bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. So we have this account. They're going to have bread. And in the morning, they're going to have meat in the evening, which is going to make it a little confusing why we have something else. In the evening, quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning, there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the layer of dew lifted, there on the surface of the wilderness was a fine, flaky substance as fine as frost on the ground. It's white. It looks like frost on the ground. I'm telling you, it's tofu. When the Israelites saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, it is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather as much of it as each of you needs, an omer to a person according to the number of persons, all providing for those in their own house or tents. The Israelites did so, some gathering more, some less. But when they measured it with an omer, those who gathered much had nothing over. Those who gathered little had no shortage. They gathered as much as each of them needed. So if you got a lot of it, it went down to what you needed. If you got less, it filled to what you needed. This is literally God providing what they need. They're still going to mess it up. But they call it, what is it? Manna. What is it? And they're told it's bread that God has provided. And Moses said to them, let no one leave any of it over until morning. So you had to eat it all in that day. But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and became foul, and Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, as much as each needed. But when the sun grew hot, it melted, went away. On the sixth day they gathered twice as much food, 2 omers apiece. When all the leaders of the congregation came and told Moses, he said to them, this is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil, and all that is left over put aside to be kept until morning. So they put it aside until morning as Moses commanded them, and it did not become foul, and there were no worms in it. Now I know people would say, well, the worms were just protein, but I'm not eating it. Moses said, eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord, and today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is a Sabbath, there will be none. On the seventh day, some of the people went out to gather, and they found none. The Lord said to Moses, how long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the sixth day, he gives you food for 2 days. Each of you stay where you are. Do not leave your place on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. Later on, when they received the Ten Commandments, which is not too far away from this, and as they go through and they codify what we call the Levitical law in the book of Leviticus, it will develop this thing of you don't travel on the Sabbath. And so what they decide to do is they set a mile, the modern, our equivalent to a mile, that you could not travel. But they had a loophole. If you went out the day before and you took things that you owned and you placed them along the path, say you had to go 2 miles. If you had to go 2 miles, all you would do is you would take something you owned, go a mile, put it there, then the next day you could travel that far and to the other place that you needed to go because you were within a mile of your possession. It was an end around on the law. Because even then, we looked for loopholes and we did stuff. Because we do that. We do that still today with various things. We look for ways to get out of doing something or and all of those kinds of things. The house of Israel called it manna. It was like the coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. Let an omer of it be kept throughout your generations, in order that they may see the food with which I fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." And Moses said to Aaron, "Take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, and place it before the Lord to be kept throughout your generations." As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the covenant for safekeeping. And the Israelites ate manna 40 years until they came into a habitable land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land in Canaan. An omer is a tenth of an ephah, which is, these are units of measurement. Okay, so Aaron, take a jar, put manna in it, seal it up. That won't be destroyed because they will keep that. Now, when they do the covenant, or the ark, when they build the ark, which is in the book of Numbers, what goes into the ark are Moses' stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. They're not God's stone tablets because Moses destroyed them. These were his copy that he redid. Because God said, "I gave it to you once, you're going to have to write them." So he had to write them. Aaron's rod, not Moses' rod, but Aaron's rod. And the reason for that is there will be a challenge to Aaron's leadership as the high priest. And they will take all of the rods of all the leaders who are challenging them, they will place them in the ground. And the next day, Aaron's bloomed. It had flowers on it. It budded. These are dead pieces of wood. God brings life to it, and God says, the one that bears fruit is the one who is the leader, and it was Aaron's. So that goes into the ark, right? So you have the Ten Commandments that Moses copied over, Aaron's rod, and the jar of manna. That's what goes into it. It's been lost to history, no matter what Indiana Jones thinks. Right? Or most likely what the Ethiopian church says. They claim they have it, but they won't let anyone see it. It's a pretty good gig if you can get it, I guess, to say that. So, and what we see here too is it's an anachronistic reading. It tells us that they wandered for 40 years, but in the story, they don't know they're going to wander for 40 years. So it tells us something from later on, early here, so that they got manna every day. We know that there's going to be places where they are going to rebel, and they're going to complain about the meat. But the way it says the meat came is every day they got quail. Right, but when they complain, God's going to give them more quail than they could ever eat, and when they bite into it to eat it, it's rancid and it's bad. God punishes them because of their complaining. There was an artist, a Christian artist. He was one of the first people of contemporary Christian music in the 70s. His name was Keith Green. Have any of you ever heard of him? Keith Green. Yeah, he died when I was in college. He died in a plane accident with several of his children. He had a large family, and his wife, Melody Green, continued on as best she could. But he had a song, and the song title was sarcastic, and it was whimsical and funny. And it was, "So You Want to Go Back to Egypt." That was the name of the song. And he played piano on it, and he was, "So you want to go back to Egypt where your bellies were full?" And it was just, And there's a line in it where he just speaks and he says, manna burgers, because they're tired of the manna, they're tired of this, they're tired of Moses leading them around, and they just want to go back because they wanted to, and the reason why he writes that song and sings that song is it is easier to be a slave than to have the responsibilities of freedom. Slavery, you just did what you were told to do. But then they have a responsibility as free individuals to choose to honor God. And that's harder because the heart is wicked and it wants to go its own way from time to time and to do those things. My phone is blowing up with messages. I don't know what's going on. So we're actually at a stop point. I do want to say thank you to Bob. One of these days we're going to make Bob come out and wave so he's on camera. Everybody knows his name, but nobody knows what Bob looks like. And I just said one of these days we're going to make him come out, and he says, He says he's the man behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But we thank him for doing this. I saw him earlier today because Paula leads the exercise group, and I says, we know we have Bible study, right? And he says, yep, I'm coming. I'm going to be there. So thank you. We're going to close it. And thank you, Bob. We're all going to thank you, Bob. Let's close in prayer. But I do want to remind you that God loves you. This church loves you. And I love you as your pastor. And God truly does love us. He has tolerated the Israelites in this journey. And you and I both know that God tolerates us as we wander about trying to find a purpose and meaning and God's purposes and meaning for us in this life and in this world. Let us close in prayer. Gracious God, we thank you and we praise you and we ask, O Lord, that you would be with us as we part. Be with us until we meet again in the Daily Word on Thursday. We ask these things in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And God's people said, amen. God bless you. Have a great day. We'll see you on Thursday. And then hopefully we'll see you on Sunday. Bye now.